So anyway, yes, so we're back. And so we're going to start off with Rick Thompson, who's going to give us those great cannabis headlines. And then when Jamie Cooper, she's arriving now, she'll give us cannabis community news. So take it away, Rick.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. And hello again, it's Rick Thompson with the Cannabis News on 420Post. Let's begin with a wrap-up of news from around the nation. A little extra credit to Tom Angel and Marijuana Moment. Vice President Kamala Harris, in her first public marijuana comment since the election, essentially said the Biden administration is just too busy to right now follow through on its campaign pledge to decriminalize cannabis and expunge records. She said, honestly, right now we've been focused on getting people food, helping them stay in their apartments or in their homes, getting kids back to school, getting shots into arms. This has been all-consuming, end quote, probably the way it should be for now. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer tweeted, ending the federal prohibition on marijuana is necessary to right the wrongs of the failed drug war, particularly for communities of color, which is why he's working with Senator Booker and Ron Wyden on comprehensive marijuana reform legislation in the Senate, pushing forward with that regardless of the Biden administration's hesitancy to do so. The House marijuana banking bill picked up 16 new co-sponsors and now totals 140 lawmakers signed on to that program. And Mexico, our neighbor to the south, they move closer to national legalization of cannabis. A second Mexican Senate committee approved the marijuana legalization bill that was previously revised by the Chamber of Deputies. Only one more panel vote next, and then a final floor vote, possibly even as soon as Thursday, tomorrow. Now, in South Dakota, Governor Kristi Noem said she wants lawmakers to address provisions about home cultivation, youth use, and regulations in the state's voter-approved medical cannabis law during a June special session. The Montana House of Representatives gave initial approval to 3 marijuana legalization implementation bills. California's Senate Public Safety Committee approved a bill to legalize possession of psychedelics like LSD, psilocybin, MDMA, and DMT. ASAP. Washington state lawmakers are considering several legislative fixes to address the state Supreme Court ruling that overturned the prohibition on drug possession, including a new decrim bill that got a Senate hearing yesterday. In West Virginia, their House of Representatives declined to advance a Senate-passed bill to allow medical cannabis edibles. The Connecticut legislature's Judiciary Committee amended and approved Governor Lamont's marijuana legalization bill. Equity advocates are happy about the changes, but say more work is still needed. Pennsylvania's powerful governor, Tom Wolf, tweeted, legal marijuana is widely available within driving distance from Pennsylvania, from New York to New Jersey to D.C. It's accessible already. Why not legalize it here and keep that revenue in our Commonwealth? He then used the hashtag legalize it. What a guy. Washington, D.C. has a council. They advanced a bill to remove the blanket ban on people with felony convictions from working, owning, or operating in the medical cannabis industry. And down south in Bama, the Senate Judiciary Committee approved a bill to ban Delta 8 and Delta 10 THC products. A Louisiana rep filed a proposed constitutional initiative to legalize marijuana, and a Florida senator spoke about efforts to legalize marijuana in his state. Now, our final story for today. You may have heard there was a little thing called Hash Bash this past weekend. The digital Hash Bash broadcast started off at noon and was seen on Pro Cannabis Media's Roku TV channel, on Facebook, and on Twitch. The broadcast featured videos from Mr. John Sinclair, the governor, the attorney general, a senator, a House rep, 2 congresspersons, Willie Nelson, and so many more. Also included professional athletes, including former Detroit Tigers pitcher Joel Zumaya, Detroit Lions Rob Sims and Calvin Johnson Jr., former Baltimore Raven Eugene Monroe, and former basketball great Al Harrington. Videos representing most of Michigan's most visible activist organizations ran too, including Students for Sensible Drug Policy, Michigan NORML, and the Cannabis Caucus. Proceeds from the virtual broadcast are being donated to 2 charities, the John Sinclair Foundation and the Michigan Cannabis Freedom Fund. Also starting at noon was an in-person gathering of folks at the Diag on the U of M campus, which is the traditional location for Hash Bash. Led by Adam Brook, the in-person event drew a crowd which media sources estimated to be from 300 to 700. No arrests reported from that gathering, thank goodness. And that's it for the Cannabis News with Rick Thompson on 420 Post. Back
Great
to you,
job
Mike.
as usual, Rick. Thanks for doing that for us. And now we'll bring in Jamie Cooper. She's going to be talking about cannabis events and what's going on with Sensi Connect, along with her big event tonight at 6, right, Jamie?
Yeah, so it is Wednesday. Every Wednesday we have our Sensi Connect virtual B2B speed networking mixers. It's an hour full of networking. You walk away with about 6 or 7 new conversations, and we have a lot of fun. So if you are involved in the cannabis business space, or you're looking to get involved in the cannabis business space, there's my bird on my shoulder who just jumped on my shoulder. Sorry about that, guys. That's what happens when you're a parent of a cockatoo. But yeah, so to register for tonight's events, it's connects.sensimag.com. And go on there, request to join. I'll let you in, and then go to the Michigan industry networking community that's there and look under events, and you'll find the event. And we also host these events in other markets like California, Colorado, Oklahoma, Nevada, and New England as well. We're going to continue branching them out into other states throughout the country. Also, wanted to talk a little bit about our 420 grab bags. If you come tonight, I'm actually going to be giving one away. So one of our lucky attendees is going to get one of these grab bags. It's a value of $350. We have 15 stores with these bags, and there's 14 cannabis products in these bags, plus a ton of swag. So you're going to want to wake up early on 420, go to your neighborhood dispensary or your provisioning center rather, and pick up one of these bags. And we'll be releasing the list of locations later this week. Super, super excited to get these out into the community and let our community sample some of the amazing brands that are hitting the markets right now.
Sounds great. And of course, Rick and I want you to reserve one for each of us, right?
Done.
I like it.
And
I like how your mind
can't wait
works.
to hear some reviews too.
Okay, cool. Now, as I said, we have a very academic-focused show today. Just sort of worked out that way. We have coming in next Dr. Stephen Johnson, who's the Dean of the College of Science and the Environment at Lake Superior State University, way up north. And so a couple of things. Actually, there was 2 things this week. Actually, last week was one, and then I got another one yesterday, where Lake Superior now has some new testing equipment in the labs we can talk about, and also it has a new cannabis scholarship program. I'm hoping that Stephen can talk about. So let's launch right into that.
Absolutely. First and foremost, thanks for having me, Mike. Yeah, so we have had our cannabis chemistry program now for roughly 2 years, and one of the first things we did was, commit a certain amount of capital to building out a state-of-the-art instrumentation facility. We are a primarily undergraduate institution. The majority of our students are first generation in college; they're Pell Grant eligible, and so we wanted to put, this instrumentation in the hands of the students. So what we did is we assembled a roughly $2 million instrumentation suite focused on analytics. I would say it ranks probably in the top 10 in the nation in terms of PUIs, primarily undergraduate institutions. But what we did recently is we acquired another instrument that's going to allow us to focus on pesticide analysis in cannabis, specifically looking for pesticides that are banned in the state of Michigan, although we could extend that panel to include, California's suite or Canada's suite, which has been, it's been nice. I mean, the main thing about our program, again, is that we've worked closely with the industry. We've seen what sort of skills that the compliance facilities are looking for in their employees, and we have designed our curriculum and courses to do so. And it comes down to a lot of hands-on chemistry. In regard to the scholarship, again, one of the first things we had to do as academics is reach out to the professionals. And so the cannabis sector has been very keen on collaboration. And I think it's a good thing. We found out very quickly that they're looking for trained scientists, people who had an idea of what was happening on, beyond trimming buds. And so, what we've had, again, is them on advisory committees. We worked with the executive director, Andrew Brisboe of the MRA, to make the right connections with these compliance facilities. These individuals have sat on our advisory board, again, helped steer curriculum, done guest lectures, demonstrations for students, and then now most recently have helped establish a scholarship fund for a lot of these students. Again, a lot of them are Pell Grant eligible, and what we're selling here at Lake State is social mobility. So this is the first one of many, I hope.
So how popular is your cannabis chemistry program up there? I know it's a brand new program, but how many folks do you have involved in that?
Quite a few. I mean, considering that we're in year 2, it's grown exponentially, and we would like to add more students while also being, reasonable in terms of laboratory constraints. Again, we want these students to be able to work with instrumentation one-on-one, and that won't happen if all of a sudden we have 400 students in this seat. So
what's the maximum class load you can take then? 50, 100, somewhere in that ballpark?
No, I think we could be definitely, above 100. Again, what we've been doing is adding more instrumentation to kind of ease those constraints as we have more students. So now instead of having one of these LC mass specs, now we have 2. So it doubles our capacity. Hiring additional faculty with expertise in the area has also been important. So yeah, there definitely is room. Again, the whole time being cognizant that you want the students to have a hands-on experience.
Sure. Go ahead, Rick or Jamie. Feel free to leap in.
Dean, if you had more corporate support, if you had more corporate sponsors that would be willing to donate another LCMS or whatever machine you need, would you have the space available to be able to utilize that and to accelerate the rate at which your training chemists coming out?
Absolutely. I mean, initially we only started with the instrumentation facility, and we realized that, our students wanted to have knowledge of the background. For instance, where did a distillate cartridge come from? Or, how was this gummy bear provided? And that's when we expanded and put together our production and processing laboratory. But we also have students that are interested in growing, as I'm sure the professor will talk about. And so we do have a hemp growth facility that we're currently looking for sponsors and outfitting. So we do have the space, and a lot of it is catered, again, by what the students are looking for and what industry is looking for.
Explain where in Michigan you're located and the difficulties you might encounter in trying to have a hemp cultivation facility considering its climate.
Well, I mean, so we're at the end of I-75, right on the border with Canada, stone's throw away. It does have advantages, because we are in the UP, we're accessible to the western end of the Upper Peninsula, but it's not that long of a drive to get downstate, to where a bulk of these facilities are. But yeah, outside grows are definitely going to be an issue. With the winters. There are a few, but they're primarily indoor operations. And then you always have issues too with, pollen drift and things like that. So again, you always have to be careful with where you're set up and safeguards to prevent anything.
Okay. Jamie, do you have any questions? Did we lose Jamie? Oh, there she is. Okay.
I do not. I apologize. I donated blood this morning, and I keep kind of getting like a little lightheaded. So
it's good. It's good to see you again, Jamie.
Good to see you too, Stephen. I love the work that you guys are doing. And one question that I wanted to ask, so what kind of expansions of the program should we, would we be seeing in the future, even in the next 5 years? I mean, obviously this is just the beginning of the cannabis industry really taking off. And I think there's just going to be so much opportunity for students.
Yeah, there already is a lot of opportunity. I would say, again, you could argue this, but we have an easier time placing interns that are cannabis chemists than any other student that we have right now. These people, because if you think about it, it's a long-term job interview essentially. So if they can go there, intern for a summer, and they decide, oh yeah, this individual will be a good fit upon graduation. So I can see a lot more of those internships developing. And then again, depending on what happens, federally or through the DA, it allows us to do different things on campus. In terms of them actually working with product that's over the 0.3%. But for now, obviously you have to stay within guidelines and use hemp.
Awesome.
Are you currently testing hemp for the industry?
So we have a lot of collaborative work that we do. We have a superior analytics laboratory that does a lot of that. And we do have partnership. So yeah, there has been scenarios where we've looked at different things, run tests for pesticides and things like that. So ultimately, it would be nice to have Lake Superior State as kind of an independent source for verification. For instance, if there is, a discrepancy between laboratories, two different laboratories in a product, I think it would be nice for the MRA to be able to come to us and say, what is actually going on here? As an independent source, can you verify? Are we closer to, let's say, 8% or closer to 12%? Something like that. Are these pesticides really there? Yeast and mold counts, or what are we going with? So in terms of development, Jamie, to come back around to your question, I can see us actually going that route. And it's an exciting time for the university and the state as well.
Now, is the emphasis on your program placing people in labs or make them expert growers, or how would you define it?
I would say, initially it was on compliance, and I think that's still the heart of our program is safety and compliance. I think as scientists, we have an obligation, once we saw the state of Michigan going this route, to produce a program and put out students that are going to be focused on this. But we definitely have students that are interested on the production and processing side, and our production and processing laboratory allows for some of that hands-on experience. As far as the growth, again, even in the growth facilities, they're still looking for students that have a deeper scientific background. So in reality, again, we've had luck placing students, I would say in 4 of the 5 different areas, with transport being the main exception.
All right. Speaking of hemp, if you can stay with us for a moment, Stephen, I know you're on a
Absolutely.
tight schedule. Let's bring in Gus. Why don't you introduce him, Rick? I have not yet met him, but I know you've spoke of him many times.
Well, Gus,
in a good way, by the way, too. So
Gus is a doctor and also a professor at the University of Michigan. He made headlines, pioneering cannabis education at a university level at that institution. Not only has he done that, he's also earned a nomination for a significant award at the university. And should he be awarded that, it would really make a big signal that the university is ready to move forward and talk more realistically about embracing cannabis research and education at the university. Please welcome to 420Post, Gus Rosania.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you all. Nice to meet you, Steve. Jamie, I know. Mike, I know from Facebook, and obviously Rick. We've interacted for a while, but I think this is the first time I meet Steve. So nice to meet you, Steve.
yeah, I think you guys have a lot in common. Now, Steve was talking about likelihood, or at least wanting to grow hemp, and I know that was one of the things that Rick told me that you're taking a look at as well.
Yes, so we can only grow hemp in very small scale at the University of Michigan. We're not an ag school, so we don't have the field-based or forestry types situation over in Ann Arbor that we could use to do those kinds of research projects that could be done at NMU, LSSU, Michigan State. So obviously, we're talking two completely different scales here. We're just trying to plant a single seed. It's problematic at the university. And we would definitely love to collaborate with other Michigan schools that have stronger ag programs. So we're more on the basic science side, so the genetics, molecular biology, and actually even more into the math and engineering side of things, which is what we're currently able to do, since the University of Michigan is currently very backwards about how they're approaching hemp, still very conservative, very careful, too careful. Because the world has moved ahead, the train has left the station, and we're falling behind. So, but I'm pushing the university to get on board or get back on board, and definitely I'm going to start working with people at LSSU and NMU and whoever wants to take the lead. I'm more than happy to work with. We can collaborate. So there's plenty to do. It's trillions and trillions of dollars worldwide that are there for the grabs. Is the future of the economy. I think I truly believe that. I think a lot of people do. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are just addicted to easy money, and many of our administrators at the university are. But we have to think about the future, because that's we're educating young generations of people, and also that's where the jobs are. So we have to play this dual role where we're actually getting government funding, and for that purpose, we have to be conservative, but also we care about the education of our students. So we also have to, do cutting edge teaching, and that's where faculty are at. So, yeah, not all faculty members just follow the administrative line. So some of us actually push the. Yeah.
One of the things, I'm one of the co-hosts of the iHemp Hour on Thursdays at noon. I'll put in a shameless plug for that show. And I am a city boy, so I am not a farmer. But I'll tell you, a year of being on that show has taught me a lot about hemp, and that I don't want to be a farmer because it's way too much work for me. But I agree with you that it's really important, because it's not just CBDs and things like that. There's 20,000 other products that come out of hemp, rope, canvas, you name it. It just goes on and on forever. And then, of course, there's the remediation. I know the city of Detroit, I was talking to Rick about that earlier, was looking at planting hemp to remediate some of the really polluted land that they have there. So, I mean, there's a lot of options. But, Steve, I was going to ask you, do you have any questions you'd like to put to Gus? So maybe we can get some sort of collaboration going here.
It's just interesting to hear what Gus has to say in terms of, everyone is somewhat cautious moving forward. But again, I think that, U of M will move forward, obviously, Gus being a pioneer. And, I'm just happy to work for an institution that is allowing us to move forward, because really it's going to be education, both to, the community, but also in the classroom that works against stigma that may be associated with this.
Isn't it crazy how the invisible lines define us? Stephen, in the wintertime, you can probably skate across to Canada, and they don't have a lot of restrictions in Canada regarding hemp that we have here in the United States of America. Which side of the lake you live on might determine whether or not hemp is a really viable career for you. Here in the U.S., we're working hard to make that happen. But what are we able to learn from our Canadian brothers and their experience in hemp?
So we've had some, and again, I can't speak, in depth at this, but I have had some good conversations, and have actually looked with partnering with Canadian institutions, and obviously this is probably some emails I should send to Gus in regard to capabilities that we don't have here at Lake Superior State University. Again, in terms of analytical instrumentation, we're top notch, but there's so much to research and so much that we don't know. And it will take, other institutions that have different strong suits to do so. So we've had discussions, with Algoma University and others about how to do that. But it seems clear that these are discussions also that need to move downstate. But I do know that, we've had broad acceptance from, the Sault Ste. Marie, just Northwest Ontario. And we've had a lot of students that have come down for the program. So it's interesting to see the draw of students, not just in the state, it's definitely not local community, but not just in the state, but from, the Midwest, beyond, different countries, you know what I mean? So again, the power of education and, ultimately students finding something that they're passionate about is probably one of the biggest career decisions that you can make. And you're making it before you even graduate. So I'm just happy to be part of it and happy to serve the students.
Gus, you've been pretty much nationally known for your cannabis program, and I know you've had an opportunity to network with people from institutions all across the USA and beyond. Are universities, generally speaking, you have a lot of staff members interested in pursuing this, but universities are just sort of get their foot on the brake at this point?
We're very much constrained by the federal government, and the fact that cannabis is still a Schedule I substance, meaning it has no approved medical use in the eyes of the federal government, which, by the way, it's incorrect, because there is now an FDA-approved drug called Epidiolex, produced by a company called GW Pharmaceutical. It just got acquired by Jazz Pharmaceuticals, another company, for $7 billion. It's an FDA-approved drug, and it's used to treat a very severe form of epilepsy, and now it's it's being used to treat other kinds of different conditions off-label. So the government's position is clearly incorrect. It's just not up to date, because we do have this FDA-approved drug. So the idea that cannabis is not of any medical use is completely wrong. It's actually disproved by their own FDA. So the government has to catch up with itself, and that's what we're waiting for. The universities are waiting for that. I think the banking, financial industry is waiting for that. I mean, how much can we do? It's really up to DC and our legislators to do what is correct. And there's all these bills over in DC. They're supposed to move through, but we've been hearing Biden, still has a very backwards view. So someone needs to educate Biden.
Right.
I don't think it requires me to go to DC because any one of us can do it. I mean, it's just a matter of letting him know, look, we have Epidiolex now. It's FDA approved. The Schedule 1 status is completely wrong. So someone has to tell that to the president.
Hang on a second, Gus. I know, Dean Johnson, you said that your time was limited. It looks as if you're about ready to exit, right?
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, Gus. I will be in contact. I'd like to thank both of you for having me. Jamie, good to see you again. And I wish you all the best.
Well, Dean, we're just going to talk about sending hemp to Mars with a SpaceX module. So maybe we'll catch you on the conversation next time around with that.
I am a person of science.
Okay, great. Well, you're welcome back on the show anytime. Just let us know when you got something going on up north.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Take care, all.
Well, I'm sure that would be a conversation he would really love to participate in too. We've talked about that several times with Gus about, sending hemp out in space in advance of humankind. It provides food, fuel, fiber. It's a miracle plant. It's a superfood. It would really be, if we had to define just one single plant to send out into space with people, that would be a candidate for the perfect choice, wouldn't it, Gus?
Correct. So cannabis would be my number one choice in terms of sending out a plant into space to produce everything we need for human survival and well-being. So it produces protein that contains all the amino acids we need. It also produces the fats that it produces. It has all the essential fatty acids that we need to survive. It makes a lot of these terpenes, which can be found in other fruits and vegetables, peppers, tomatoes, blueberries. So in theory, we wouldn't even need to, send out peppers, tomatoes, and blueberries. It just becomes part of the hemp because it's actually made by the hemp plant. Plus, it would also produce the fiber and the herd, which is the cellulose, from which you can derive any one of a variety of products that humans need to live, from plastics, everything that we can get from petroleum, we can essentially make from hemp and its cellulose product, which is the herd. Because petroleum itself, fossil fuels, those came from plants that used to live millions of years ago. So these plants die, they get buried under the earth, and under high temperature and pressure, they become petroleum, which is a mixture of hydrocarbons and aromatic compounds. So all those could be obtained from plant matter because that's where they come from in the first place. So if you're going to grow something in space for the purpose of feeding humans, you want to grow hemp. And hemp is also the most effective in terms of converting carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which is plentiful in Mars, into a form of carbon that's organic that you can get, that then you can convert into other products. So it's the most efficient plant at doing that we know of that can be grown in agriculturally. So it's ideally suited for human colonization projects in space. Where we are scientifically, again, very much constrained by the US government. So, all these regulations about cannabis being of no medical use whatsoever need to simply disappear because they're wrong. When is that going to happen? I don't know, but it cannot happen soon enough. So we just need to take that to the president and Congress, and we need to see that change done. So
how many states, Rick, are there now where it's legal? I'm 13, 14, something in that ballpark, right?
No, we're bigger than that.
19.
Now.
Is it 19 now? Okay.
19 this week.
Mexico, yeah, right. So
that's right. New York came on board last week, right? So
yeah.
medical is 38. So the recognition that it's of medical use is already, vast majorities. And those 15 are the adult non-medical use, which encompasses research. Actually, research falls in the category of adult non-medical use. I hate the word recreational, unless you really love research like I do. But that's a very small fraction of the population that thinks of research as fun. But that's where I lie. But yes, adult non-medical use encompasses research, as well as everything else you want to do with hemp, be it food, oil, herd, plastics, whatever. So that's adult non-medical use. And those are the 15 states that have come on board now with the new waves of legalization. We still have the federal government to acknowledge the medical use. And I would say that's the easiest, because you got vast majorities of the population already voting in favor. 38 states saying it's of medical use. Plus you get the FDA approving Epidiolex, which I can't emphasize enough. That's already a recognition that yes, cannabis is of medical use.
And of course, they like to divide cannabis versus hemp based on chemical composition, but we all know it's all the same plant, right?
Yeah, it's just the THC level, and therein lies the problem. It's called the DEA. I not only on this show, we've talked about it on the iHemp Hour. It's just they're hung up on that, right? Of course, and on the federal level, it's still a Schedule I drug, and I think it's going to change. Like Rick said, the Biden administration is kind of busy right now trying to get us past the pandemic and keeping people from losing their homes and such. It may be a great political issue for late this year or early next year, because, of course, we have, excuse me, the elections coming up in 2022.
The DEA already has a far more serious problem to deal with, which is the opioid epidemic. They could really be helped a lot by just being told that cannabis is legal, because cannabis is actually a better pain-killing option than opioids in the first place, number one. Number two, cannabis doesn't kill anybody. It's a completely non-lethal, it's not even a drug, it's a plant, okay? But it's in terms of its drug and its potential for toxicity, tetrahydrocannabinol, which is the number one psychoactive moiety in the cannabis plant, or CBD, which is now being used medically, they have no lethality, unlike the opioids. And the amount of pain and suffering and the cost of the opioid epidemic is just tremendous. It's like the DA is just not doing enough there. So they could be very well served if they're actually told that cannabis is not only legal, but it's actually a fair alternative to opioids. And actually, what's been found that a lot of people who are addicted to opioids can switch to cannabis and either reduce opioid use or come off opioids completely. We've learned that over the past 4 or 5 years. So the federal government really has to be educated, and they have to come up to date on current knowledge in terms of where their attention needs to go. I think that's the most important thing I have to say. That's what we're all waiting for. So, we're kind of preaching to the choir here, so we got to take it. We really have to take it to Washington, D.C. And Debbie Dingle is, she's great. She's in our district. She came out to Hashbad as a U.S. representative. But we need to really educate all our Congress people, the senators, and then we have to take it to Biden. So we have to educate Biden. Somebody's got to tell him. So
I think the Senate itself is going to continue to push on this, whether Biden wants to go in neutral or not. And I think it might actually be an advantage if the Senate and the House of Representatives comes up with cannabis legislation and not the Biden administration. The legislature, at least at this point, seems to be far more willing to give us some of the things we need to make our industry successful, as opposed to the half-step toe in the water kind of a way that the Biden administration would choose to do it. Mike, we've got a new guest.
We do. Actually, it's Jamie's guest, so I'm going to let Jamie make the introductions. So go ahead.
Yeah, so we have Bill Stoller with us. Bill is with Novo, and Novo actually, I've been working with Novo for probably about 3 years at this point. I've known Bill for about that long, and he and their team have been doing a lot of work on the west side of the state. And actually, today they opened their second store in Muskegon. So, welcome to the show today, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jamie. Thanks for having me. Wish I had a little more notice, but we'll make do.
I know I called him a couple hours. I was like, "Hey, can you come on the show today?" And
I appreciate that. We were scrambling. We had one of our guests drop out unexpectedly, so I put the bite on my co-host and said, "Quick, come up with somebody." So I'm appreciating.
I was like, I know people.
Yes.
And I happen to be going to Novo's store on my way there, and then dropped off our grab bags at their store because they're one of our participants. And so, Bill, tell us a little bit about Novo, what stores you have open, and a little bit about your products as well, your brands.
Well, I'll give you the 2-second backstory on me. I've been a patient in Michigan since the inception back in 2009, and have been at least part of the industry since then. Met Alan Bonset and Philip Chen. Alan was with Novo. Philip Chen was with his own different is Virtue Cannabis and some other brands out in Portland. We aligned and brought their cultivation, large scale cultivation and retail expertise to Michigan. So we hit the ground running, and we now have 4 retail licenses that we're going to be opening these stores. So we have the Edwardsburg store is open, Muskegon store open today. We'll be opening the Emmett Township, which is Battle Creek store, in the next month and a half, and then we're going to be opening our Benton Harbor store early summer, and then we plan to do another 6 to 11 more stores over the next year and a half in Michigan. And
so you're pretty heavy in West Michigan, Southwest Michigan. You're going to be coming this. I'm in Ann Arbor. You're going to be coming this direction at some point.
We would love to. Do you have any opportunities for me?
I'll scout around town for you for a location. How's that?
Great. Our cultivation is and processing is in Benton Harbor, Michigan, which they've been. It's a great community. It comes with its challenges, but it's been a great community. Anyway, so I'm sorry. That's.
I know, and a little birdie told me that you guys got your adult use for the Benton Harbor facility.
We have.
Would that be Coco, by the way? Did Coco tell you that? Or
our special use permit recommendations all came through yesterday, along with all of our site plan approvals. So we should be good to go there.
Good.
That's awesome. Well, and I've been working with Bill since he was going through into these communities and trying to get them to open up. And Bill did a lot of work in both Benton Harbor and Muskegon, and obviously doing more work in the communities that you guys are expanding into. What kind of challenges did you face with that over that time? I know that there were a lot of hurdles that you hit, and that's unfortunately something that comes with starting these businesses.
Well, we are in a startup industry, and anytime you do anything, you have it comes with trying to find the right property for your business. Well, this comes with the added issues that cannabis had when people didn't really understand it. It's a new thing. The legislature was not very well understood. The municipalities didn't know what they could get away with and what they couldn't, and the state wasn't super forthcoming with information, as they still really aren't. At least they have the municipal guide to help guide them along a little bit now. but it's a lot more complex than any other business I've been part of, and I think it's a lot harder than people from the outside realize what a heavy lift it is to get into this industry, because of all the hurdles that are put in front of you, without the safe banking at this point. So your money is very expensive. Everyone that has a property in a quote unquote green zone thinks that their property is worth $10 million. And then people that are not vertically integrated are operating on very, very tight margins. And they don't get to write anything off because of the 280E rules.
This is one of my favorite questions to ask our guest is, knowing what you know now, would you do it again?
Oh, in a heartbeat, but I'd do it a little smarter.
A lot of lessons learned, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
let me dive into that question. So if you're going to do it smarter, what are the hard lessons that you have learned that if you could go back and change, you would?
I would go to each municipality first and make sure that they were completely on board with what I wanted to accomplish. And if they weren't, I would probably move on to the next municipality. That would be the biggest thing. You got to make sure that you're, and with most of our municipalities, they have been very forthcoming, very easy to get along with. But there's been a couple that, they might not have been ready for prime time.
Okay.
Right. And do you think that they got enough guidance from the state, the municipalities?
Once again, it's so early. I don't think they did. I don't think they had enough guidance from the state, and that's part of the state trying to skirt the liability.
So,
well, Bill, if you've been a patient since the beginning, the states hasn't always been a really good partner. I remember that used to take 6 months to 12 months to get your card, and they still don't have a picture on the cards. They never wanted to offer legal advice to any patient or caregiver in any situation, and they're really hesitant to try and give direction and guidance to new businesses. It seems like maybe they should be a little more us focused, right?
I can't say you're wrong.
So
right.
if you were going to get Andrew Brisboe, of course, he may watch the show, so bear that in mind. What would you say to him now? I mean, okay, I understand where you were coming from at the beginning, but things have changed. This is how I would change some things around. What would you say to him?
I think the intent of the state has been pretty pure. I think they were hoping that things would just kind of fall into place. I think they were hoping that the municipalities that opted in for medical would automatically just move over and opt into adult use. I think the state's intent was also to try to limit the illicit market. I mean, these are things that have, that I'm just slightly paraphrasing that have come out of the state. I'm not sure that, everything that's happened has been what they wanted to happen. And I think when you have so many different municipalities involved, just think how hard it is to get anything done through the state. Now you've got, 1,000 municipalities that you're dealing with that are also have a little bit to say about it. In a way, I wish it was just kind of a yes or no thing and the state handled the rest. Or a single body.
Well, and that's what stinks is like every municipality has a different, process in the way that they are approving these businesses and where they can be. And there's absolutely no consistency. And, there's some municipalities that are probably writing their own rules without looking at what's already been done, and other municipalities and actually learning the lessons that some of the other municipalities have learned. I mean, because there's been some tough lessons. There's a lot of municipalities facing lawsuits, Warren, Traverse City, and I know there were lawsuits in Muskegon, and it's just, it's a mess. And I think that we have the opportunity as a state is just that we do have a great law. I love the law that we have, especially compared to other states. I mean, we could be Pennsylvania, you know, where it was just really, really, or Florida, you know, look at those states. They're just like I'm really grateful for the law, and I'm grateful that we have Andrew Brisboe, who has an ear to us at all times. I mean, I've been with Bill at some events where Andrew was there, and he's happily answering questions and engaging with the community, which is so important because not all states have that. And so we really have a lot to be grateful for here in Michigan. And the weed is plentiful.
Gus, we've left you out of the conversation. If you feel like you want to leap in, do so at any time.
Yeah, no, I'm listening.
Okay, good. All right, go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry. I just wanted to throw that out to him.
And Rick had said something, and I think I had missed it.
I was just saying that, you know, Director Brisboe is very approachable. There's no question about it. His immediate predecessor was as well. But prior to that, when it was back in the Department of Community Health days, Bill remembers back in the early days and before licensing and regulatory affairs was even created by the incoming Snyder administration, we had a very difficult time interacting with government agencies. And nowadays, at least from a business perspective, it is much easier. I have been corresponding with the director again recently, and I think we are going to have more in-depth opportunities for patient community representatives to have their concerns aired directly to the director. And he's always been good to work with as far as I'm concerned, no matter how bad I can sometimes be to work with.
Okay.
Not so bad. I work with you every Wednesday, and then I got to work with you for Hash Bash.
Well, when I'm with the government panels, and I've done quite a few different government panels, I found that people that couch their statements don't make their points. So that when you want to make a point with a lawmaker or with a leader who has the ability to say yes or no, you have to be direct with them. And oftentimes my method of being direct is interpreted as more hostile. So.
Well, I appreciate your directness, Rick, you know, because that's the way I am, too. I've been a journalist for 41 years, so I ask the hard questions, and if they can't take the heat, well, then get out of the kitchen, right?
I mean, that is the way. However, when you're negotiating with the local community or whether you're negotiating with state lawmakers, you still have to operate with a level of tact because you're trying to do two things. You're trying to make a point while you're also trying to build a relationship. If you incorrectly abuse that relationship on your first encounter, you don't get a second encounter. Or if you do, it's only as a part of a group where your voice is no longer singularly significant. It's just part of a larger chorus. Now, at all levels, it's important to engage in government, but to engage in government in a way that leaves government wanting to engage with you next time, that's an art. And that certain people are able to do that quite well and other people struggle. So
I have something to your point to add. When dealing with the municipalities, a lot of cannabis operators go in thinking that, hey, you know, this is my right to be here. That is not the case. It's a privilege. And if you start going in acting like, you know, you come into my house and come into my kitchen and start making whatever you want and tell me, you know, you have every right to be there, I might not want to be your buddy. And I think that's happened a lot throughout the state.
Yeah. So I know, Rick or Jamie, you will have these stats. How many communities now have opted in? It's still right around 100 or so, isn't it?
When you're talking about for legalization and legalized businesses, we're at 115 or something, 120. Director Brisboe mentioned that number just not that long ago in a media release. So that's my current reference on that. But there are like 1,700 municipalities in the state of Michigan, though. So
yeah.
As
150 dispensaries? Would this be 150 dispensaries? 150
communities that have said yes to cannabis businesses in a legalized manner.
I'd say provision. I think there's like over 300 provisioning centers, medical and adult use. So
when you say 100, does this mean companies, or does it actually mean separate retail stores? So the 300, is it the companies? Oh, this would be separate. I see.
I think it's separate.
Okay. Do you have the numbers for how much they sold last year?
Yes.
Just under a
Collectively?
billion. Just under a billion,
Yeah, it was.
995 million, something like that.
Yeah. We
And
had we had Director Brisboe on the show in December. He was predicting 1.5 this year, but I actually think that's going to be low. I think it'll be closer to 2. And then he was predicting next year 3, but I think that's going to be a lot higher too because it's really accelerating now.
I'm expecting March's sales number. We had February's sales number, and we were all impressed with it. I think March is going to be huge from
I
the
think so
sales.
too.
So if you
Everything
take
I've heard.
1.5 billion and you divide it by 300, you get the average of what each of these provisioning centers is selling. Is that correct? Is
Yeah,
that
something like
effective?
that. I know
It's
one
weird
of the
enough.
statistics I saw was how much taxes were going back out of each provisioning center, and that was a month or two ago, and it was something in the neighborhood of $29,000 per provisioning center. Was that right? Did I get that wrong?
Well, you got the number right, but I'm not sure that you're assigning it to the right purpose. The $28,000 is what the government paid back to each individual community
Right.
that hosts a cannabis retail center.
Yeah.
That's only a portion of all of the tax collected because the tax is divided up into 3 different legitimate areas.
Sure.
You know,
Well, I think that in the end, that'll probably be what induces a lot of communities to get on board because, hey, it's more taxes, right?
right.
So-
And, you know, we tried to get people to come on board when we showed them sick kids or when we showed them veterans dying or when we showed them old people that were being helped, and they didn't care so much. But when you flash the dollar signs around there, people come to dinner. That's what they
Absolutely.
do.
When
Well,
you
co-
say,
Go ahead.
so if I do the calculation, it comes down to about $5 million per provisioning center in Michigan.
Mhm.
That's
Bill,
last year. So that's, 1.5 billion divided by 300 is 5 million. So that's on average.
Sure.
That's a lot of money,
A lot of money.
So they're doing really well. I mean, right? I mean, plenty of room to grow, sounds like.
I'm going to have to we're coming up to the end of the show, and Gus and Bill are new to the show. They don't understand our shameless plug segment, but this is where you get to plug whatever you want, whatever project you're working on, your business. And since Bill is our businessman here, why don't you talk a little bit for the audience about how folks can get your products?
Well, what I'm going to do is just give a quick shout out to all of our friend Ryan Basor and Redemption, who we carry in our stores. And he is, I think I'm going to go meet with him. I'm in Lansing right now. And I think he wanted to talk to me a little bit about the Last Prisoner Project and how he's doing a lot behind the scenes, not only through his foundation, but working with other foundations to free people who were incarcerated in the war on drugs.
Okay, and then if folks want to find out more about, you got a website, right? To talk about your products a little bit.
Well, ours go to nobogoods.com and talks about our specials and our store openings as they come up. And please check out our Muskegon store on Apple Avenue next to the Taco Bell.
And
Okay,
not far off of 31 either. It's like right off of 31.
Right off the Apple Avenue exit on 31, 196.
It's good that it's right next to a Taco Bell because after they get the munchies, they can go there, right? So,
Right.
sounds good.
Helping
Gus?
everybody.
Yes. Gus, go ahead. Talk about a little bit about what you're doing at the U of M, how people can reach out to you.
Also, cannabis is a plant. It is not a drug. It is a plant from which you can derive all kinds of different products that have nothing to do with drug. Okay, that's number one. Number two is we already have an FDA approved drug called Epidiolex that is in use in the United States that is derived from the cannabis plant. Therefore, the FDA already recognizes the plant and the fact that you can get a useful drug out of a plant. So there is every reason to remove cannabis from Schedule 1 status right now. The fact that it is still Schedule 1 right now is absolutely at odds with the government's own position in terms of what this plant is all about. So it needs to be removed from Schedule 1, period. We just have to start calling senators, representatives, everybody, so that we do what needs to be done, what should have been done a long time ago. I think that's the number one thing I want to get people to understand. And we have to get that all the way up to the president. That's the most important thing that we could do for each other, for me, for the economy, for everything. So beyond that, I really have nothing else to say. That's the most important thing I can say.
If people want to reach out to you, why don't you give them your email address?
Yeah, so G Rosania, I'll spell it GROSANIA at umich.edu. So you can find me online, Gus Rosania. Google me up. But right now, I think you're better off emailing or calling your representative, your senator, and getting the word to the president that he needs to come up the scheduled substance list. Cannabis, sativa has no place in the scheduled substance list right now.
Good note to end on there. Jamie?
I can't agree more with Gus. I mean, it's so important. We are at that time that change could be coming, very well coming. And, we need to be using our voices and talking to our local representatives that we support this and help hold their hand and educate them. They probably have a lot of questions and we probably have a lot of answers. So again, tonight is the Sensi Connects virtual speed networking event. It kicks off at 6 o'clock. To register, go to connects.sensimag.com. If you come, you could get one of these Sensi magazine grab bags. There's going to be 14 products, like 8 pre-rolls and like 5. This is just the swag product. So I have, this is a little pouch from Common Citizen. We have some papers. This is kind of cool. It's like papers and filters, a little package from Flourish, which will be on the show next week, I do believe. Yep. Select. We have some pens from Select. These little pre-rolls, cones. These are really cool. They have little eyeballs on them if you can't see it. And then, we had Rob Rabar on here last week, but he donated one of his hemp pre-rolls in there as well. And then, like I said, like 8 pre-rolls and 5 edibles in there. So lots of good stuff going to be in these bags, and definitely try to get your hands on one and come to the event tonight. So you'll get one.
Wow, what an incentive to join the group. And I've been on that show many times, made a lot of new friends. So anybody in the business world that wants to connect, great place to do it, one-on-one. Rick?
Well, thanks very much, Mike. I have a couple of different podcasts. I'm on Medical Mondays on Monday evenings. We do Jazz Cabbage Cafe from 4 to 6 every Tuesday, including conversations with Michael Thompson, Richard DeLisi, a big program that we just did about Leonard Peltier, who still remains in federal prison, plus the Digital Hash Bash. You can catch the Digital Hash Bash at A2 Hash Bash channel on Twitch. You can catch it on Facebook, and also still in streaming replays on the Roku network. In addition to that, Redemption Foundation, I'm on the advisory committee. Michigan Normal, I'm on the board. Please support all of the different cannabis advocacy organizations throughout the state.
Yes, and we hope
kudos to Rick too. He did a great job emceeing the Hash Bash last weekend. So him and Anquinette and all the great speakers, it really was a great event. So please check it out because it's worth watching if you didn't catch it.
Yes, it was fantastic. On demand, so you can take a look at it. Went for 3 hours or something like that?
4. Don't understand.
4 hours. All right. Okay, sounds great. And let's hope that next year, that since I live in Ann Arbor, I'm a mile and a half from the Diag, it'd be nice to do a real live. Well, I know they did live Hash Bash this year, but I was a little concerned about the pandemic situation, so didn't attend that. But I'm Mike Brennan. I'm editor of Michigan Marijuana Report, which, as you can see behind me, you can find at MIMarijuanaReport.com. I'm also the producer of this show, but I couldn't do it without the help of Jamie and Rick, who really came through for me today when we lost one of our guests yesterday. And I appreciate Gus and Bill coming on with such short notice. And we'll be back next Wednesday. And as Jamie alluded to, we'll hopefully have Flourish on. We got some mix-up with Flourish. They just had a big announcement coming out today that they're going to be supporting the project that Ryan Basor is behind. And also some other stuff. They have their accelerator they're going to be talking about, so it'll be a great show next week as well. So we hope you join us. Easy to do. We just find us on Facebook. And the show is also available on demand. If you can't be here between 1 and 2, I know schedules are being what they are. You can always watch it on demand at MI Marijuana Report or 420 Post on Facebook.